Hey, thanks, Pastor JL. I appreciate you. Man, I'm pumped to be here today. My name's Ed. I'm obviously the campus pastor here at our East location. And so for those of you in the room or for those of you joining online, I'm so expectant for today, and I'm glad that you're a part of church today. And so here's what I want to challenge every single one of us to do. I want you to lean in. Because I believe when you come to church, you can take a posture where you're disengaged, where you're not sure this is gonna be for you. Maybe the message is gonna be for somebody else, or maybe it's gonna be for the people in the room, but if I'm tuning in online, I can be washing dishes or doing something else while I'm listening to a sermon. But alternatively, I wanna challenge you, if you have an open heart, if you have an open mind and say, God, I'm ready to receive today, I believe that is a posture of your soul that God always responds to. And I believe if we lean in to what God has for every single one of us today, He will speak to us not only collectively, but I believe He will speak to you individually. Amen? So lean in. Whatever you came in here with, I believe God has a word for you. Hey, this past week was my wife Katie's birthday, and husbands, I gotta tell you, I raised the bar a little bit, all right? So I apologize in advance to all the husbands in the room. I took my wife on a 2-day trip to the Grand Canyon, okay? So I'm sorry, but I set the bar. I brought along some pictures for you, and I don't have anything else to say about the Grand Canyon that hasn't already really been said. It was completely surreal. I remember when we were driving on this road, it was lined with trees on both sides, and then it came to a little clearing, and there was no one there. I mean, the Grand Canyon has on average 16,000 people that attend it every single day. We went in the midst of a global pandemic, whether supported or not, and you can hold it right there. We went in the midst of a global pandemic, and so we didn't see 500 people the whole time we were there. I mean, it was empty. We saw one park ranger. It was empty. And so we're driving on this road, and a road that normally would be for shuttle buses, but we're in our car because nothing's running. And we see this clearing, and we pull off. And if you've ever seen Jurassic Park when they first see the dinosaurs, and they climb out of the Jeep, and he rips his glasses off of his face, Jurassic Park, man, that is a good movie. If you don't like Jurassic Park, you can leave right now. I'm just playing. Just go, that's your homework, watch Jurassic Park. It was just this surreal moment, the wind got sucked out of our lungs, and we're like, this is unbelievable. And so we had an absolutely incredible time, but I decided that I wanted to walk us down a path. And so you can see it on this image. Go back to the previous photo if you can a second, because you can kind of see it on the previous photo wrapping around on the side of the Grand Canyon right here. And so if you've ever seen the stereotypical pictures of a mule walking up this little narrow path on the side of, this is one of those paths. This is the South Kaibab Trail. You can go to the next photo. This is kind of overlooking, and you can see the steps of this trail going down. And so I had read about the South Kaibab Trail, and Katie and I aren't hikers, but I'm like, yeah, we could do that. We can take this trail. And so I don't even tell Katie what we're doing, but I'm like, we're gonna do this. And the trail, you can't really tell, but it wraps all the way around the canyon towards the top of this photo here. And we decide we're gonna do it. And so we start off down this trail. Every step is more terrifying than the last. And we're walking down it. And to give you a taste, I brought a video. of what it's like walking down this trail. So you can cue this. This is me just walking down this path. It is maybe 3 or 4 feet wide. We're turning the corner here. You can kind of see there are some steps kind of created. Yeah, this is terrifying just watching this right now. Okay, so we're walking down this trail, and both of us had a moment on walking on this trail where kind of the dirt slipped out from under our feet. You know what I mean? Where you're just whoa, you know what I mean? You're just walking and you just can't see it coming. Fall to our butt, okay? We both fell, and my heart sank in those moments, right? It was absolutely terrifying. The edge of the Grand Canyon is right there. And I'm like, let's keep going. And we moderately prepared. We had water, we had some snacks, but we didn't prepare with our shoes because we prepared for a lot of walking. We did not prepare for a lot of hiking, okay? We brought shoes that were good for Disney World, not hiking down the side of the Grand Canyon, okay? So I'm wearing, sneakers or whatever. That's why I can't walk on dirt. And we get to the bottom of the steps. I mean, we are down like deep into this Grand Canyon at this moment. And the point we're trying to get to is about a half-mile away. It was at that moment that my wife's like, we should turn around. Like, we are not ready for this. We did not prepare for this. We did not bring the right supplies for this. We already walked down the steps. That's a victory in and of itself. We did arguably the hardest part of this path, but let's call it a win. The Newells did it. If it's on a bucket list, we can check it off and let's get out of here. And I'm thankful I listened to my wife because I'm still alive right now to tell you the tale that at least we walked down the steps. I got to tell you, I left the Grand Canyon just completely in awe of it, but I also left very thankful for my wife because we have been married 8 years. Every year she makes me better. Every year she champions me. Every year she makes me stronger. And she is also the person to say, you're an idiot, get away from the Grand Canyon, okay? And so I am very, very thankful for her. Hey, how many of you know that we were not meant to do life alone? We were meant to live life together. We were designed to live life in community. In fact, Christianity as a whole is not meant to exist outside of community. God literally designed it for us to go through life together. I think the problem, though, is for most of us here, if not all of us in the room, we tend to view life through a Western ideology that is very individualistic. And we apply this individual way of thinking towards all areas of our life, including our faith. And I'll give you some examples, because when we face problems in life, I'm not saying this is everyone here, and I'm not saying this is all the time, but very often when we face problems in life, our basic tendency is to say, well, I can take care of it, that I can do it, that I can handle it. And I got this problem, but other people have problems too, and so I don't want to worry them with my problems. I'll take care of my problems on my own, and I'll figure it out. And I don't even want to talk to somebody about my problems because maybe I'm a little embarrassed about them to start with, and so I don't even want to tell them because I'm worried about what they might think of me. And if I tell them, what if they think less of me or they don't want to be my friend anymore? But I'm probably the only one struggling with this problem anyways, so I'm just going to hold it close to the chest. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to solve it. And we go through life really just saying, man, I'm going to do it. I'm going to pull myself up by my bootstraps and I'll take care of it. When it comes to faith, we kind of apply this lens onto our faith, and we tend to make our faith all about me. And it's about my faith and my journey with God and my personal salvation. And listen, yes, your faith is about your personal salvation. There is a party in heaven every single time someone accepts Jesus. Jesus himself talked about leaving the 99 to go find the one. And I believe in this very room, whenever someone gives their life to Jesus, I believe the community here celebrates that person making that decision. The problem is, we tend to live in that space. We tend to keep our faith all about ourselves. And we tend to think things like, well, what's my calling? And what does God want for me? And those aren't actually bad questions to ask, but listen, your purpose will only be fulfilled inside of community. Your purpose is not meant to be experienced alone. Listen, the power that exists within Christianity has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with us. It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with us. So if we spend our lives trying to find out our purpose and find out our calling, and we're only focused in and of ourselves and what God has for me, I think that's a problem. I think that's not actually what God calls us to. We will only find our purpose if we find it within community. See, it's together that I truly believe that the church is able to be effective at doing the one thing God really challenged us to do, the one thing that he's always destined us to do, the one thing that he really places a high calling, and that's to love. But we can only do that if we're going through life together. In Ecclesiastes, it says this in chapter 4. It says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if 2 lie down together, hey, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Can I give you my summary of this verse? there's strength in numbers. There's strength in numbers. If I'm going through life alone and I need to handle something, if I take a stand about something, one person is able to take a stand, but multiple people taking a stand becomes a movement. And there's power in numbers. And so I was saying, man, together, it's only together that we can actually do the power of love. Like the love is the ultimate highest expression of power that the church has. It is the single thing that Jesus himself said that people would look at the church and be able to know that God is real, is our ability to love one another. And so we can only do that if we're actually willing to go through life together, if we're actually willing to stand with one another, if we're actually willing to get involved in other people's issues, other people's problems, other people's stories. That's the only time that we're actually able to do this. There's a story about King David, and King David's a pretty prolific historical figure of our faith, one of the greatest kings to ever lead over God's people. And there's this moment in his life, and he wasn't perfect, right? But he loved God, and a lot of his issues tend to be interpersonal issues. He had a lot of relationship issues, and the fact that he had relationship issues kind of, fell down into his family tree, and it'd be an understatement to say that there were some problems among his children. There were a ton of issues between the siblings, and one of the issues kind of got out of control, and one of the sons, Absalom, actually kills his brother. And Absalom goes on to start planning a coup. And he's like, well, I'm gonna take over control from my father, David. I'm gonna take control of the kingdom. And word starts to spread about this. And so David gets a little worried, and he gathers up a lot of his officials and his army and a lot of his family. And there were some other people groups that were kind of living under his kingdom at the time, and they were kind of committed to David. And so he gathers up all these people, and they begin to set out. But in the midst of this, we see a small interaction between King David and a guy named Ittai the Gittite. Okay, that's his name, Ittai the Gittite. Everyone say Ittai. Ittai the Gittite. And Ittai the Gittite he's kind of the leader over this group of people, the Gittites, who are saying, like, we're gonna follow along with King David. The interesting thing about this is the Gittites were a non-Jewish people group, okay? We're not really sure why they were there in the first place. David actually has a really interesting history with the Gittites. As a young boy, David actually defeated a massive war criminal by the name of Goliath. Goliath was a Gittite. Okay, so many years ago, he has the greatest showdown with their biggest warrior. Okay, so that's early on in David's life. Fast forward some years, David has this interesting dynamic with a guy named Obed-Edom. Pastor Jason talked about him a few weeks ago. I don't have time to go into his whole story, but Obed-Edom was a Gittite. And he, comes into possession of the Ark of the Covenant, which housed the presence of God. And David goes and gets the Ark from Obed-Edom and brings it back to Jerusalem. And there's all these interactions that he has with the Gittites. Take all of that into account, we still have no idea where there are 600 Gittites kind of saying, I'm with King David. But there are. And Ittai, the Gittite, is the leader. And so we see this small dialogue exchange between King David and Ittai. And I want to look at this dialogue, and literally this is where I want to spend the rest of our time here together, is just looking at this exchange and saying, okay, what can we learn about this as it relates to the way that you and I are meant to have community today? Is that good? So this is in 2 Samuel. It says, the king said to Ittai the Gittite, why should you come along with us? Go back and stay with King Absalom. You are a foreigner, an exile from your homeland. You came only yesterday. And today shall I make you wander about with us when I do not even know where I am going. Go back and take your people with you. And it says, may the Lord show you kindness and faithfulness. But Ittai replied to the king, as surely as the Lord lives, and as my Lord the king lives, wherever the Lord the king may be, whether it means life or death, there will your servant be. It's a pretty radical statement of commitment from a guy who we don't even know why he's there, leading this group of people that we don't know why they're there, to this king. And there, remind you, King David is over God's people. The Gittites were not necessarily God's people. These were not Jewish men and women and children. But he makes this commitment to say, King David, I'm with you. And it's pretty radical, and I think we can learn some things from it. But can I tell you my honest reaction, my non-pastoral reaction to this? Ittai is an idiot. That's what I think. That's honestly, forgive my language if that's a bad word. That's what I think when I read this. I'm like, Ittai, what are you doing? Because King David just gave you a massive out. Why would you say you're gonna take you and the 600 people you're responsible for and insert them in the middle of a civil war between a father and his son? You gotta figure out how you're gonna lead them, you gotta protect them, you gotta feed them, you're responsible for them. So why would you make the decision to do this? If I'm Ittai, I'm probably saying, hey, King David, thanks, man. I'm sorry this whole thing's going on between you and your son, but you're right. I got my people that I'm responsible for, so I'm just gonna, go this direction. Maybe I'll go back to the kingdom and, hope we can just find some peace there. But good luck. I hope things work out for you. And then you throw on the Christian phrase at the end, I'll pray for you, right? And I feel like that's my reaction because I feel like I see that so often in our relationships today. Because we are not quick to make a statement of commitment towards someone. We are not quick to make a statement of, I'm gonna stand with you in your mess to someone. We are more often, I think, quicker to say, man, I'm really sorry that's going on for you. I actually feel bad that that's happening to you. I hope things work out for you. I'll pray for you. And listen, I know there's some people in this church that when they tell me they're praying for me, they are praying for me, y'all. We got some prayer warriors in this church, and prayer is a first response. It is not a last resort. So I believe in the power of prayer, but I think far too often it has become this little bit of a norm for Christians just to say that to one another on the tail end of a conversation, not because you don't want to get involved, but kind of because you don't want to get involved. I don't have the time to get involved with your issues because I got my own issues going on. I don't have the time to do with your issues because I got to handle these issues over here. And I feel bad those issues are going on. I'm not even sure I have the resources to help you. And so we just keep people's problems at arm's length and I'll pray for them. And we're not quick to jump into it. We're not quick to say, I'm going to stand beside you as you fight this battle. Can I tell you, I really believe this is a major strategy of our enemy. I believe the enemy wants to destroy our capacity to help one another, destroy our willingness to come alongside one another. And I think he wants us to believe we are living in community just because we show up to church and just because we go to the same church as somebody else. He wants us to think just because we come into the same place, we listen to the same worship team, we sit under the same preaching, that we're doing life together. But this doesn't actually mean we're existing in community. I think far too often we're living siloed off lives where you don't even know the people that are in your own row. And so when we're living life like that, I think the enemy's like, man, I got them right where they want them. Because they think they're in a good place. They think they're doing it right. They think they're existing in community. But when it actually comes down to it, I know far more people who come to me and say, I don't have the relationships I need in my life. I do not have someone I can turn to. I do not have someone I can talk to. I do not have someone I feel like I can rely on. And if that's our individual experiences, I think, man, collectively, we're probably doing something wrong. We're probably not doing it right. And so the enemy's looking at us and saying, man, I got them right where I want them. Can I tell you, if the enemy can destroy our ability to exist in community, it better positions him to defeat us individually. Our power exists in community. Our power exists that we can stand with one another. Our power exists that we can be vulnerable with one another and actually tell each other our issues and actually work through them together. You were not meant to do life alone. And so I think we, in theory, know that, but we're not actually willing to walk it out and pursue the relationships intentionally to make it actually matter in this life. This week, I was prepping this message. I ran into someone who comes to our church, and one of my oldest friends here at the church, she's attended longer than I have, and she was in my very first small group that I ever attended here at Amplify, and she might be watching online, or maybe she'll be at the city campus later today. She doesn't know I'm telling this story. But I ran into her, and I said, how are you doing? And her answer to me was, do you really want to know? And she didn't mean anything by that. She asked me that because she had a lot of stuff going on in her life. Like a lot of heavy stuff going on in her life. And so she asked me, are you actually asking because you want to know? Or are you asking because you want to go through the normal dialogue that we've all been conditioned to do? Hey, how are you doing? Good. How are you? Good. She said, do you really want to know? And honestly, my heart sank a little bit. And my answer, I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, but my answer instinctively was, yes, I want to know. Like, tell me what's going on. And she proceeds to tell me all these things that she has going on in her life. And I'm just like, man, like, I can't, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. But I wonder if we've been conditioned so much that we can do life on our own that we can't even have a genuine conversation to ask how somebody is doing. Besides just, honestly, when you ask someone how they are doing, do you actually care? Do you have the time to actually hear whatever their answer would be? Or do you just want to pretend you're in community with them and you just want to be cordially nice to them and, hey, I'm glad things are going well for you. I'm going to keep doing my thing over here and you keep doing your thing over there. I think the enemy has us right where he wants us. At the end of that Ecclesiastes passage, it talks about a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Another translation says is not easily broken. I think there's something we can learn there. Because being in a relationship with people doesn't automatically mean your life is gonna be super easy. It doesn't mean that your life is just gonna be perfect if you're actually living in community. Actually, can I tell you, it's actually a little bit harder to live in community, and it's way more messier. Because you actually have to be involved with people's problems. The Bible says, weep with those who weep, not just say, understand and feel bad for those who weep. It says you actually have to be involved with what they got going on, which means, yes, I got my own problems going on, and Jesus is saying, take their problems also on your shoulders and care about those too. That is a way messier life to live. And it takes way more time to actually do that for somebody else. So I'm not saying it's easier, I'm saying it's actually gonna take more time. I'm saying it's actually gonna be messier, but both of you will be stronger for it. You won't be quickly broken. You won't be easily broken. You might bend a little bit, but you won't break. And so if you are a marriage that's struggling and you might be going on the brink of divorce, if you actually have marriages around you that are strong in their marriage and you actually make it a priority to talk about marriage, I promise you will be stronger. Come on, we can clap. Let's just do it. You will be better off, not if you have marriages around you that you just like going to dinner with and having fun with, but you actually need to say, hey, how's it going in your marriage? How are you actually doing in your marriage? Can we tell you how we're doing in our marriage? Can we actually talk about it? Because then if you do that, it will get messier, but it will be more vulnerable. You guys will ultimately be stronger, and then you won't be quickly broken. If you're a guy or girl in this room and you're struggling to stay sober, you already know this because you've been taught this in the 12 steps. One of the greatest things you can do is put people around you that are also trying to stay sober, that are also trying to do the same thing you're doing, that can keep you accountable, that know what's going on in your life so you can actually ask each other what's going on. And it's gonna be messier, but it will make you stronger. You will be better. If you want to better manage your finances, actually talk to your friends about finances. Don't just not talk about money and not talk about this massive thing. Jason preached on it last week. Just not talk about this thing. Saying, what are you doing with your money? How do you save? How do you make sure you don't overspend everywhere? Actually talk about it so that you guys can be stronger financially. And it will get messier because you gotta admit that you spend way too much money at Starbucks. But you'll ultimately end up stronger. You won't be easily broken. There's this phrase, I don't know if you've ever heard this. I don't know if it's a phrase or an idiom or I don't know what to call it. The it factor, I don't know if you've ever heard that. Someone has the it factor. It's typically described onto somebody whenever you can't put language around why this person stands out as great. Or in sports, maybe they call it the X factor or something. And it's like, man, they got something that I can't really describe, but man, it makes them stand out to me. I've often heard it described that Christians, if we're really living our life in a way that has God Almighty on our side and we're following His best practices for our lives, that people should be able to look at our lives and say, man, there's something about them that I want. I think I've even taught that from this stage. I've heard other pastors teach that That people should be able to look at our lives and say, man, the way that they interact, the way that they love each other, the way that that person lives, there is something about it. I can't really put my finger on it, but I want it. Now, we know it's Jesus, right? We know it's Jesus. And hopefully people do see that in our lives. But I'm gonna make the case that maybe it's this it factor. That we're called to just have something, we're called to have it. We're called to have something just makes us stand out. We can't really describe it, but something about our relationships that when we are in relationship with someone, people could look at that and say, man, there's something different about the way those, not even just intimate relationships. There's something about the way those two friends interact. There's something about the way those two colleagues interact with each other that's just different. And so I want to talk for the rest of our time together. I want to look at 4 transcendent qualities of relationships that I believe get exposed in this short dialogue between King David and Ittai the Gittite. And so I didn't give you a title of today's message, but I'm calling it the it factor, but for our purposes, the Ittai factor, okay? That's what's it. This is what I worked on at work all week this week, so I hope you appreciate it. I don't know what you did at work. This is what I did at work. The Ittai factor, that's what we're calling it today. But before I tell you these 4 things, I gotta give you a little bit of disclaimer that if you actually want to do this, if you actually want your relationships to look different, it's gonna be because you're intentional about it. Healthy relationships are intentional, they are not accidental. You do not trip into a healthy relationship. It takes work, it takes time. They're like a savings account. If you wait to do it when you need it, it won't be there. Whew, come on. You actually have to invest into relationships. And so I don't know what you're bringing to the table here this morning. Maybe you're like, I need all new relationships. Maybe you're saying, I got relationships, but we don't actually talk and get vulnerable with one another, and we need to start. Or maybe you're in a good place, I don't know. But wherever you're at, can I tell you, one of the greatest choices you can ever make is who you choose to do life with. Right? Pastor Greg Rochelle, he puts it this way. He says, show me your relationships and I'll show you your future. I love that so much. So I don't know what you're carrying into today, but I pray that this blesses you and that it helps us see what are the things that we need to do in our relationships that would help just let them stand out a little bit, help them give them an it factor that they can actually make us stronger in life, all right? I got 4 things. I'm gonna go through them really quick. First one is this, relationships that honor one another. Relationships that honor one another. I think honor has become a lost art in our society. I think we more often live in a culture of dishonor. And dishonor shows up really, really a lot as narcissism and cynicism and sarcasm. And I think even in what we find funny today is sarcastic humor. And I love sarcastic humor, okay? There's a lot of sitcoms I love that build their entire plot on sarcasm, and I love it. But I feel like it breeds a culture of dishonor. And a lot of times we don't choose to honor because we've got it in our mind that we only honor people that deserve our honor. But who gets to decide whether they deserve it or not? Who gets to decide if they're worthy or not? I gotta tell you something, you don't have the right to decide if someone is worth your honor or not. God already made that determination for us. You can clap now, but I'm gonna tell you why. Because Jesus came down from heaven 2,000 years ago and he paid a price for the world. He gave his life so that every single person could know him. And a person's worth is only determined by what someone is willing to pay for them. And so Jesus already determined people's worth. So you don't have to decide, is this person worthy of my honor? The only thing you need to decide is, are you going to be a person of honor? Are you gonna choose honor? And so I believe for us, it's Ittai, you see that he's choosing to honor King David by saying, hey, I'm gonna be with you. You might think it's easy to honor a king, but I believe it's easy to honor anybody because God doesn't make it my decision to choose who to honor. He just says, honor. He says, honor. I believe you can honor people that are above you in life, your superiors, your parents. I believe you can honor people beside you in life, your siblings, your peers. I believe you can honor people below you in life, your subordinates, your younger generations, whatever. But it's a choice to say, I'm gonna choose to honor. Number 2, second transcendent quality, that we would be faithful, that we have relationships of faithfulness. Faithfulness is really, it's loyalty. Ittai said, I'm gonna be with you, life or death, I'm gonna be here. It means I'm just gonna be with you. I'm gonna be for you. I'm gonna be for the things that you're for. I'm gonna be against the things that you're against. And I'm gonna stand with you in life. I'm not going anywhere. Your life can be going well and I'm gonna be there. Your life could be a wreck, I'm gonna be there. That's faithfulness. And you know what? Faithfulness is interesting because faithfulness and honor are a little bit two sides of the same coin. Faithfulness shows up in a lot of different ways, but it is really tied to honor. Because listen, ladies, if you got a guy who won't honor you, what makes you think he's gonna be faithful to you? So it is so closely tied to someone's ability to honor you if they are going to be faithful to you. Faithfulness is loyalty. It says, I'm gonna be with you through it all. I love Proverbs. It's maybe the simplest definition I've ever seen of faithfulness. A friend loves at all times. That's it. I believe that's the purest form of faithfulness. I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna be for you. Third one, transcendent quality of relationships that give you the it factor. Relationships that protect one another. I love this. Ittai, he's really making a decision that says, I'm gonna fight for King David in this war against his son. That's what he's doing. Actually, Ittai goes on to lead 1/3 of King David's army. A non-Jewish man leading 1/3 of the largest Jewish army. It's crazy. He says, I'm gonna protect you. And now, maybe you need relationships that are physically gonna protect you from something that's possible. But I think when I think about relationships that protect me, more often, I got friends that are protecting my heart, protecting my soul, protecting my mind. I'll give you a good example. One of my best friends that does this for me is our lead pastor, Jason Howard. And when I'm thinking negatively about a situation, when I'm thinking negatively about myself, when I'm thinking things that go against God's word, Jason protects me by reminding me what God's word actually says about my life. And he literally protects my soul. He does it to the point that it's annoying, but at the end of the day, I love you, he's probably watching. He does it to the point that it's annoying, but honestly, when I lay down at night, I'm thankful that I have a friend who's willing to protect my heart and protect my soul. He's willing to look out for my life. I have a friend that actually cares about me and the state of my life, and so he's going to protect me. I think protection can show up in a lot of different ways, but there was one example I saw over the last week that I thought was beautiful. There's an actor named Chadwick Boseman who passed away this past week. He is best known because he played the character, the Black Panther, in the Marvel Avengers superhero movies, Wakanda Forever. And he passed away from a 4-year battle with colon cancer. And it was pretty devastating because as great of an actor as he was seemingly even a better man. And he was an incredible, incredible role model for the Black community. Because finally the Black community was able to see someone on the big screen that they could feel is representing them. He was a big deal. And so he passed away, a 4-year battle with colon cancer. And you know, it's almost impossible. It just never happens that somebody in the public eye can actually go through something personally that it doesn't get leaked. And that it's like they can't actually go through something personally, but he did. He fought this battle 4 years, no one knew. And it stunned the world with his passing. And I look at that and I say, you know what that means? He had friends protecting him. He had people around him that loved him and cared for him and were championing him. And over those 4 years, he made some incredible movies. He was doing some incredible things, media appearances, literally visiting kids with cancer themselves, just like doing all these things. No one knew what he was going on behind the scenes. And you got these friends that literally had a piece of information that the world would love to know. That literally the world feeds on that kind of information being leaked out for 15 minutes of fame on Twitter. But those friends knew there was something more important, and it was their relationship to Chadwick. It was their relationship to him. And you know what? Just by holding that close to the chest and helping him fight the battle alone, they were protecting him. They were protecting him. I'm like, I want that kind of friend in my life. I want that kind of friend that's gonna protect me like that, though, like Jason will protect my heart and mind. Maybe someone's gonna protect your name so that when a little bit of gossip comes along, they shut it down, and then maybe if they think it might be true, talk to you one-on-one about it instead of talking to a lot of other people about it. That's protecting your name. You need friends that protect you. Fourth one, challenge. Challenge. Friends that will challenge you. Relationships that will challenge you to be better. Guys, this one's tough. Because it is easy to have relationships that will seem like they're good for you, but really they're just disguised, they're just disguising themselves. And these are the relationships where you would say, man, they just let me be me. Well, I don't want relationships that just let me be me. Because I'm not the best version of who I actually want to be. I know God has more for me. I know that God has more in store for my life. And I want friends that are actually going to call out the stuff that is going on in my life that maybe I'm a little blind to, but that I need to improve on and be better about. And so I want friends that are going to challenge the things that are going on with me. You might say, well, that's a little difficult to do. But listen, if you have a friendship with someone and you've been faithful to them and you've been honoring them and you've been protecting them, I guarantee when it comes time to challenge them, you're going to be able to do so. And it's going to go easier than you think. Hey, Ben, you guys can make your way up. But I want friends that are going to challenge me. Did you ever hear the phrase, can I be real with you? Did you ever hear that? Can I be real with you? I hate that phrase. I hate that phrase. Because if you got to ask me if you got to be real with me, what have you been doing this whole time? It's like, I want a friend that's going to be real with me all the time. I'm not interested in relationships that are built on temporary transparency, okay? I want someone that's actually going to be real with me. Okay, listen, young people, you want to keep it 100, you're keeping it 1/10, right? It's like, yes, be real with me all the time. I want you to look into my life and be able to call out the things that are not good so you can help me be the very best version of what God wants me to be. We need friends to honor, that are faithful, that protect, and challenge. If we do that, church, listen, I promise you, your relationships will stand out. Your relationships will be better. You will be stronger together because you're actually standing with one another and be willing to walk through life with one another. Hey, John already mentioned this, but next Sunday, we're going to start announcing small groups. And so small groups are going to be starting at the end of the month. And we already have a ton that are on the website right now, so you can go start and start looking right now. But they'll be all up to date by next Sunday. We'll be talking about it. And we're going to push it all month long. But can I challenge you, if you're like, I need some new relationships, this is a great place to start. And we got tons of groups meeting about different types of studies, meeting about different types of ideas, and they're meeting at different times, different days, different locations. Some are online. We'll be respecting COVID practices for the ones meeting in person, and you can figure that out. But listen, these groups are bigger than just saying, hey, church's Bible studies, we'll help you be a part of one. It's saying, no, this is literally a gateway for you to have some relationships that could change your life. But you need to go into them and be willing to be that type of friend. Because if you're like, man, it's hard for me to find these types of relationships, I would ask you, are you this type of friend? Are you doing this for somebody else? Because when you aim to do it for others, I promise you those relationships will come back to you. Jason talked about the spiritual law of sowing and reaping. If you sow honor into your relationships, I promise it'll come back to you tenfold. If you sow faithfulness into your relationships, it will come back to you. If you sow protection to the people around you, I promise it'll come back to you. If you sow challenging in your relationships, I promise it'll come back to you. And that's a good thing because it'll make you better, it'll make you stronger, it allows you to actually love as you walk through this life together. Hey, can we stand on our feet? I'm gonna pray for us.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Amplify Church today. I believe that God has something powerful He wants to do in your life. So listen, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on anything that we're putting out there, because I believe it can help inspire and encourage you. Also, partner with the ministry of Amplify Church to get this message around the globe through your generosity. Together we can change the world. And listen, we'd love to have you live online with us 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. every Sunday. Wherever you are in the world, you are a part of the AMP fam.